the Around the NFL podcast. The NFL always wins.
Welcome to another edition of Around the NFL. Yes, the NFL always does win. May 15th, schedule release. Blowing up the sports world. Dan Hanzus here with heroes Gregg Rosenthal and yes, Marc Sessler. And that is what we are all about on tonight's episode. We're taping this Wednesday evening here on the West Coast. Marc Sessler, the schedule is out. We're going to go through all the interesting nugs that we can dig up on short notice. And I know I can see the goosebumps through my monitor right now looking at you, bud.
I mean, I was thinking, though, that back when I was in like 7th and 8th grade, that there was a very special day I think it was back in April back then, where USA Today would print, and it was breaking news as a newspaper back then, like the entire NFL schedule. And like my brother and I would have a wrestling match over like who got to look at it first. So it is historically has meant a lot to me. I think now I'm surprised that it's not taking place over 4 or 5 or 6 days as a week-long event, because I think that's probably where we're heading with it at this point.
For some reason, like when Marc started telling that story, I expected him to be like, and then the milkmen came over and told us from the transistor radio.
He's older. Yeah, it's funny. I'm a huge fan of the NFL, since I was probably about 10 or 11 years old. But I don't remember the NFL. Obviously, they didn't handle it at all the way they do now, as in terms of a blowout event the way it is now. But even then, I feel like when the NFL schedule dropped, you would find it, I don't know, on like the back page or deep in the sports section when it was released. And there would obviously be your local football team or teams. The beat reporter would hammer out 800 words on it, maybe. But now, as everything is tied to the NFL, it is a huge to-do. And while and this is a good time when you think about our great late friend Chris Wessling, we like to keep it in perspective and not be one of those shows or people that cover the game that put too much into these schedules and look at them and actually try to figure out, oh, this team's going to be good, this team's going to be bad, and you're going to see a lot of that over the next few days and weeks and months. But also, it's fun. It's still fun to look at what's going on. And I think, Greggy, and I'm going to give you the last word before we jump into it. Before we look at week one, that's a good thing to remember too. Like it's all fun, and maybe it's a little bit over the top and overdone a little bit on some level. But at the end of the day, it takes us one step closer to a new season, and that's exciting.
Yes, it was my role, I feel like, back in those shows with Wes, to just subtly needle and be like, hey, let's lighten up there, Larry, and have a little fun with football. They'd be like, you already know the schedules. You know who's home and away. You just start like saying when the games are. It's like, yeah, okay. Right. But then you see the week one schedule, and it does get my blood flowing. And like Walker could not have been more excited. So I feel like I'm reliving what it was like to be a fan. Not that we had this, but he immediately starts looking at the schedule and doing the win-loss thing for various teams, which is like that was the number one columnist / beat writer move back in the 80s and 90s.
Well, they've got an NFL segment that copies that exact same trend, and maybe he could step right in and fill that role if they want.
Yeah, the Falcons at 13 and 4. I was like,
corner, by the way. I think that's Rank's corner. You better watch out. Rank could be somebody that he'll go after you if you come toward his corner.
You're
watch
right.
out.
He gave the Falcons 13 and 4 to start, Walker, and I'm like, okay, you can't just make every team 12 and 5. It doesn't work that way. You got to
the Falcons
balance it out. I know. I mean, you got to balance it out. It doesn't make sense.
Why the Falcons? Why did he?
He started in alphabetical order. He's gonna do every team. I don't know.
Listen, no, far be it from me to ever doubt what Terry Fontenot could do. With the brain trust over there. 14 seems like a better number. Let's start with week one.
Yes.
And we're going to go through it. We'll go through, week one, because that's the next week of football games. And we'll check out the primetime slate. We'll check out the international games for you listeners out there that love that. And maybe or maybe not. You saw I was on social media talking with Handsome Hank, Henry Hodgson, and he gave me one of those things, which I love it. He's like, hey, do a promo read where you're giving away the tickets. It's like I have 2 tickets to Jets Vikings October 6th, and you give them to the audience. I was like, I love that. That felt like a career checkpoint, like a check mark. Like I've always wanted to do something like that. So win Dan's tickets, like that's nice. I like
Me,
It
I'm
was
giving
about
away.
2:00 here in LA when I, logged on my phone for about the 600th time today and noticed that had dropped. And I thought, I know Dan is enjoying this moment because it is. It's kind of like you're a contest announcer at that point. That's a
You're our
special
Terry
privilege.
Bradshaw. You know?
Shut up. All right. Yes, the holiday games, what's on NFL Network, all that stuff we're going to get to, but let's start with week 1. And how about this, Greg? As a way to get into it, because you are, I say this begrudgingly, but it is what it is. You are the defending locks champion. So when we do get to that first Thursday show ahead of week 1, the Thursday show we'll do on September 5th, you'll have the first pick.
2-time defending locks champion, 4 out of 5. Don't forget.
Enough. You took it too
Greg,
far.
it's late at night. We don't need to hear that right now.
You will have the first pick as a
Ooh.
result. What would be the game? And if you don't know, if you're new to the show or just a little hazy on how we do it, we don't draft island games. But what would you take in a non-island game draft week 1, pick 1?
Ooh, that's a spicy question. Because I'm going to take one that I don't think you guys would want, but I want it. It's Texans Colts, actually. I want Anthony Richardson, CJ Stroud. Like I think.
Please lock yourself into that pick.
Okay, first of all,
Zuzzer picking second. I love it.
First of all, the best games in week 1 are the primetime games. We know the kickoff game is great. Ravens Chiefs. Packers Eagles is in Brazil on Friday night. That's incredible. The Sunday night game is delicious. That's Rams Lions. Your Jets are back in primetime on Monday night again in week 1. And to me, those are like the 4 best games of the week, actually. So the draft is a little different. And yes, I'm all about quarterbacks. And the 120 minutes of complete games that Anthony Richardson played last year, to me, were just so electric. And I love me some CJ Stroud. Like that or like Caleb Williams would be where I would probably go because I just want to see it right away.
Yeah, that's a great one. I would have the second pick. And hell, let's do it. Tough.
Can I tell you what the other one I was debating?
Yeah, what's the other one you were thinking?
Falcons Steelers, just because it's either Russell Wilson or Justin Fields with the Steelers and it's Kirk Cousins with the Falcons. To me, that's fun.
This is a classic Greg move to pick multiple games when he's already picked a game.
Sorry.
You know what's funny? Because I would do it just to either I would leverage it for a trade, or I would take it just to get the season off and on a horrible foot. Cowboys at Browns. And
Yeah,
Mark, you texted me about what the news that came out. So I think that's a really good game. I think it's an interesting game. It's the late Fox game. And who is on the call, Marc Sessler, for that particular game?
That's why I think it's just incredibly spicy, and we're all going to be watching it. But it is the debut of Tom Brady. And, I think that's something that, Greg and I
In
have
the
been
booth as the number one guy.
The number one guy for Fox. Greg and I have been on a beat wondering if this would ever occur. It's clearly happening at this point. And Greg Olsen has been bumped to the second booth, which I think I did a segment about that earlier in the offseason, feels unrighteous to me. They're loaded. Fox is loaded. But of course you're going to want to watch that game and just see how does Brady handle, the Cowboys and the Browns. But I texted Greg saying, I am legitimately surprised with all the teams you could have found to play the Cowboys in week 1 and have Tom Brady announcing, I know the Browns were a playoff team, but that to me felt like an upset that the Cleveland got that spot at home for Tom Brady's first game against the Dallas Cowboys. Kind of a strange pick, but that's where I would have gone with the number 2.
The Cowboys, listen, and we all know the Cowboys haven't even been to the goddamn Super Bowl in over a quarter century, but that they always do the biggest number. And Fox is like, put Tom on that game and cross our fingers and see what happens. I mean
more Cleveland though. It could have been, the Eagles versus Dallas or something,
Sure.
but they're going Cleveland versus Dallas. The Cleveland side kind of threw me, but why not?
I'm changing my pick, by the way. I'm
what's
going
wrong
to
with
take
Cleveland?
it just to annoy Mark, and I do want the Tom Brady factor, so that's a big one.
Too late. In fact, I kind of picked it, I think, or maybe I traded it to Mark for 7 number 1s to be named later. I do. There's plenty of good games there to pick from. I do think it's a little, that guy Greenberg on ESPN. They kind of use him as the Jets fan mascot, and it's a little over the top to me, to be honest. Like every time I try to read a story about the Jets on ESPN.com, I like Samini as a beat reporter. He's the longest tenured beat reporter in team history. So he writes from a perspective that's unique on the beat. And I can't scroll down without a giant picture of a video still of Greenberg's eyes bugging out. And I'm like, what is he fired up about now in a performance-based, a pure performance? Like, I know this isn't how he actually feels. Like, when I'm talking about the Jets, it's how I actually feel. It's not for the cameras or the microphone. What a joke. What a joke. Point being, wow, hit piece on Greenberg in a big spot.
I know. I was like, what did he actually say? I still don't know.
But he said he stood up on his morning show and was screaming that, why are the Jets in primetime again, Monday Night Football to start the season? I don't know why. I guess bad juju because of what happened with Rodgers last year. I think it's fun and exciting, and it's going to be obviously a reset for that team. And damn, I think it's going to be a lot of fun to see the Niners and the Jets in that spot. The Jets with that great defense, the Niners with the unstoppable offense at home. I think that's a great game. I'm really looking forward to it. And I'll throw one game that could be sneaky great. How about nobody's talking about the Jaguars this year? How about the Jaguars at Miami? Maybe a nice little shootout, but with two quarterbacks that love playing in the warm weather.
I'll give you one. Like, not all the matchups are great, but I would think that a second-round draft pick in one of our drafts, like, I want to see Jim Harbaugh's Chargers in their debut. They're playing the Raiders. The Raiders aren't that sexy to me, but like, I can't think of a team that I'm more interested to check out early on is just where the Chargers are right out of the gate and what they become. And it's like, go play the Raiders in week 1 and be something different than these past Chargers teams. I think they will be.
I mean, if the Chargers at home against, I think that's going to be a bad Raiders team. Like, if they can't beat the Raiders in the Jim Harbaugh homecoming game, I mean, Chargers fans are going to be like, are you kidding me? Is this happening again?
I know there's varying levels of excitement about the teams around them, but to me, like Jaden Daniels, you want to see his first start. That's against the Bucs, so that's at the same time as the Cowboys. If J.J. McCarthy's starting, he gets the Giants in an early game, and Bo Nix. We're gonna have so many damn rookie starters. It's kind of outrageous. He starts in Seattle, but the primetime slate though, that might be the best. I was kind of looking through it. That might be the best primetime slate of any week all season on paper. Those are pretty much, I mean, and you can't ruin it with injuries. Hopefully, praying to the football gods. You can't ruin it at least with bad records. Like, we know they'll all be 0-0 going into it. That is like 4 bangers in a row to start. So good job. Good job.
It's a good point though, because these networks, they, especially this past year, just getting absolutely banged over and over every week by matchups that looked amazing in May that are dog poop by November because of the injuries, and you definitely give yourself more coverage by front loading these schedules. So we'll be ready for that. Now let's move to Monday Night Football. Let's go through the some of the primetime island games. We'll start with MNF. I guess I could start, Mark, depending on your perspective, I could start with TNF because it's kind of the first game of the week, but I've already said Sunday. We've talked Sunday, so now we've gone to Monday first. What do you think? Was that a mistake?
I don't know if we've made a mistake. I do think it's interesting that, like, while you just ripped Greeny a new one, he probably, minutes later is wondering who this Jets guy is giving away Jets tickets in London. So I think there's just a rivalry there. But anyways, we can move on.
You don't think Greeny knows who I am? Now that hurt.
Ouch.
No, I think he's probably
now you've hurt me, Marc
you.
Sessler.
He's probably dismissing you to the level that you're dismissing him, because Jets fans in the media don't like other Jets fans taking their spot. I have noticed that in over the years. I think that's a thing. So
I would I would love some examples, by the way.
I mean, that's a deep cut to our Culver City newsroom. I know
I can
exactly
give you some
who
examples.
Dan is talking. I mean, who Mark is talking about. I know exactly.
And for the record, Greeny is a legitimate Jets fan. I just think they've kind of leaned into his Jets fandom in a bit of a overly performative way. But that is what it is. All right, now. You don't think he knows me? Monday Night Football.
I do.
All right, here we go. So we talked about Jets at Niners. Week 2, we have Falcons versus Eagles. So we're gonna get. How did the Falcons do, by the way, with primetime games? Did they get a lot?
I'm glad you asked that. They are in prime time 3 of the first 5 weeks. We're going big on Kirk early. At Philly Monday night, week 2. Home for Kansas City Sunday night, week 3. We'll get to the Sunday night games, and then they got an Amazon game, Tampa, week 5. So it's a lot of Kirk early.
We got
just
back
fine. I'm with that. I like that.
We also have 3 Monday, which I've never been a fan of, Mark, and I know you feel this especially. 3 Monday Night Football doubleheaders. Week 3, when you have Jags, Bills, and Commanders, Bengals. Week 4, Titans, Dolphins, Seahawks, Lions, and Week 7, when you have Ravens, Bucks, Chargers, Cardinals. So you get 3 of those in a 4-week stretch, in a 5-week stretch, and you also get another one. This feels that might be tied to the holidays, but Week 15. You're going to get Bears, Vikings, and then the Falcons again versus the Raiders. Week 17, by the way, you have a epic showdown, potentially an NFC Championship showdown preview between the Lions and the Niners. So ever since Joe and Troy hit the scene and the rights in terms of just what ESPN pays for Monday Night Football and then what they're paying for that booth, these games are so good now. Sunday Night Football is always going to be king, but Monday Night Football now is a very respectable silver medalist.
I'd say this, like, we are veterans of watching multiple games at the same time on Sundays. So if anything, we have the skills to watch these Monday night doubleheaders. It's just
Mark,
the classic,
keep that energy in October, okay?
No, I'm saying I like that. Like, it's the classic sense that Monday Night Football used to be like the sporting event of the week, and they're competing against themselves and with everything else at this point. So at some point, you got to give up the ghost and be like, next year there'll be 5 of them, and the years after that there'll be 7 or 8. So you got to just roll with it.
I'm glad
I
they
don't like
didn't
them
do
at
it
the
in
same
week
time.
1 at least. I'm glad they didn't do it in week 1. There should be an asterisk though, like when you're looking at all the teams, it's like shows how many primetime games each team has. But then like the ESPN Plus game for the Arizona Cardinals Chargers as part of a doubleheader. It's like that shouldn't count as a full primetime game. That's a half of a game for the Cardinals. Sorry, you didn't even really get a.
It's like David Zasloff over here now.
It's the same thing. Like you can kind of see it. It's like, oh, let's give the Titans one primetime game, but it's the ESPN game when the ABC has one that's better on that same Monday night. Monday night got one of the games I was keeping an eye on. Where is it going to land on the schedule? The Harbowl. Little Jim and John coming to LA on Monday night after Thanksgiving. So it's a big football weekend. And then you get a little Harbaugh v. Harbaugh in week 12. Which I'm intrigued by that. You remember the awkward press conferences. It's fun.
Oh, I'm sure modern day Jim Harbaugh is going to handle that extremely well with the daily pressures of the gig at the place he is at now, emotionally and otherwise.
It's not just another day. It's today.
All right, why don't we take a look at Sunday Night Football? Unless we had any other MNF takes.
The only one that stands out to me also, though, is Bengals, Cowboys, Week 14. It's my main note there is like, can we please still have Joe Burrow at that point? That's some of these games I would like earlier just for what we talked about before. But if everyone's healthy, that is I can't really remember a Bengals Cowboys game of much note in my lifetime.
I'm honestly like Burrow. Sure, you always want to make sure he's on the field. I don't know. Are the Cowboys even going to be good this year? I don't know. I got a weird feeling about the Cowboys.
Out of the mix by week 14 would be shocking to me, but you're right. I'm with you on the are the Cowboys going to be good?
All right, let's check out Sunday Night Football. So I just said that Monday Night Football's slate is always, okay, and then to good, and then now that Joe and Troy are involved, that now it's great. But nothing ever touches Sunday Night Football. It is, which is funny. Like speaking of Mark, you were talking about the old days. Checking out the agate in the back of the sports section in 91 to see what the Browns schedule was. But, Sunday Night Football used to be a total afterthought on some level. It was almost like, why does this game exist? Monday Night Football was the marquee game. There was no Thursday Night Football. Sunday Night Football was this kind of weird ESPN telecast. I remember it was like Joe Theismann? Paul Aguirre was on the call.
Paul McGuire.
And was it McGuire?
Paul McGuire, yeah.
Paul McGuire was on the call, and the games were sometimes.
Why
good,
am I
but-
suddenly like making only comments about the 80s and 90s? Like I do have takes about this generation.
I think you're just correcting me there. Don't beat yourself up about that one. That was actually very important. That was very important. But anyway, so Sunday Night Football back then was not the place to be. Now it is. Let's check it out. Sunday Night Football 2024. And remember, at a certain point, and it's earlier than ever now, Greggy, I know you'll have the details. These games can start to be flexed out. That could happen with other primetime nights as well now. But Sunday Night Football opens, like we mentioned, Rams-Lions, a rematch of that great one-point wild card showdown in Detroit in January. Week 2, Chicago, Houston. Oh, give me all you got with that. I like that.
I love that. That's creative. I think that was like, we're going to put Caleb in primetime maybe a couple times. Let's do it right off the bat in Sunday night. That's juicy.
Right, because especially the Bears, obviously huge market, huge hype around them, but they could still suck. I mean, they have a rookie quarterback, well within the range of outcomes. But in week 2, they're still sexy, and there's no stink on them if stink were to potentially exist down the line. And then you get C.J. Stroud. Chiefs, Falcons. The leaning into the Falcons thing is interesting to me, but it is what it is. Bills, Ravens, week 4. Whoo, that's nice. Cowboys, Steelers, week 5. I'm just going to go through them. Bengals, Giants, week 6. Jets, Steelers, week 7. Cowboys, Niners, week 8. And I'll pause here after Jaguars, Eagles, week 9. Any thoughts on the first half of that slate? Keep it up, please.
The one thing I noticed that I love about this season is that you've got the AFC North, where you've got 4 potential playoff teams against the NFC East, that it doesn't really matter how good they are. They're primetime gold. So it's like every week is dotted with these North versus East showdowns. And I'm looking up and down this Sunday night slate. I don't see a bad game. And outside of a couple teams that are a little suspect, it's like there's not a bad game on this slate.
Right. You can flex games starting in week 5. I mean, it'd be sad if you had a week 5 game and you got flexed out of it, but maybe it would be a big injury. A maximum of 2 between weeks 5 and 10, and then you can flex whatever you want after that 11 and on as much as you want. What strikes me, Dan, is your boys. They're not living on Sunday night where they never used to get any action, but they're just in. We might as well mention it here. They're just in primetime all the time. They got a Monday night game week 1, Thursday night game week 3. They're in the Hot Toddy, which is an island game, week 5, Monday night week 6. You mentioned the Steelers on Sunday night week 7. They got another Thursday and another Sunday coming up in weeks 9 and 11. That's outrageous. They are in primetime more than any team in the NFL. I think they're tied with the Chiefs, but they're all also in the first 11 weeks for whatever reason, and then it dies off. So it's just get ready. They're not America's team, but they're just gonna be the conversation, like among the leaders in conversation week after week after week.
I think America's team might be the team with 6 standalone games, which is the Lions. We live in a world now where the Jets and Lions have a combined 13 standalone games, and they lead the league. That is an unusual place to be.
Yeah, it's not about the Jets. It's about Aaron Rodgers. And if you look at Aaron Rodgers, how many primetime games he's had, I would imagine no one's had more primetime games in the last 15 years than Rodgers. He's bankable. And last year, Jets fans had it the worst, and Rodgers had it the worst the way it all played out. But then everybody got dinged as well with all those games that showed up. So it's almost like the networks and the NFL had a decision to make, which was, do we, sit on the Jets a little bit and move away from them, or did last year just not count in a lot of ways? And this is the route they went. So I'll get the frustration if the Jets disappoint and they keep popping up, but there's also a very good chance when you look at their roster that they are going to be a team that is a competitive playoff team. So I get the consternation if it's out there, but it makes sense to me with Rodgers.
No, it makes sense. It makes sense.
All right, and second half of Sunday Night Football, Lions, Texans. Woo, doggy.
There's a lot of Texans too.
Yeah.
They're betting big on the Texans, which makes sense.
Colts, Jets. So the Jets are back again in week 11. Hopefully Anthony Richardson's back as well. him against that defense makes some sense. Eagles, Rams, week 12. Whew. Niners, Bills, week 13. This is a who's who in the NFL, at least where we stand in May. Chargers, Chiefs, week 14. Packers, Seahawks. Seahawks get a primetime game in a Sunday night. That makes sense. They get it week 15. Bucks, Cowboys, week 16. Week 17, a game, Mark, that potentially could have huge ramifications in the AFC playoff picture. The Finns and the Brownies.
I mean, or it
And
can
then
be
week
flexed,
18
but yeah.
is TBD v TBD. They always try to make that one either a win or go home game or a game that otherwise has big playoff ramifications.
The one thing I see, because if you look across these like primetime, they used to, TNF used to be a way to, wedge the dirt nap teams at some point into the primetime schedule, and only the Panthers weren't given a primetime game this year, which I think when it's only one team, that's a real slap in the face. I hope it motivates
I was
them.
saving that nugget when we got through the primetime games, but yes, while we're here, yes, they are not Monday night or Sunday night, and they won't be Thursday night either. The only team without a primetime game. But man, you go 2-15, and you know what? I don't know if the NFL is thrilled with the operations in Carolina and how things have been handled in the last year or so. So you might have a little bit of a slap on the wrist there as well. It doesn't not make sense to me. But if you're Bryce Young, you were the toast of the town 1 year ago today, and now you're on a team that doesn't even get a single primetime game when the NFL is probably about 59% primetime games now. So it does tell you a lot about where their standing is at this moment.
So one thing I noticed looking at this NBC schedule is the Chiefs are on NBC like four times. And we don't see it if you're looking at the graphic on YouTube. There's also a Saturday game, which is a new little wrinkle that's part of the NBC schedule. It sometimes was, I think, on the NFL Network. I think CBS has a game, and it's Saturday, week 16, but NBC has it, and it's like going up against college football a little bit. Some bowls are going on by then, and it's a big-time game. It's Texans-Chiefs, so it's not surprising that they're leaning into the Chiefs, but like the Chiefs are the Sunday night football, are like the NBC team, which is a lot of Tirico and Mahomes.
Well, it's Collinsworth and Mahomes.
Sure.
And Mark, like I get the frustration of people not wanting to hear the folksy wisdom of Collinsworth screaming about Patrick Mahomes for the 9th straight season. But I really do hope. I have a lot of concerns based on the current construction of the roster and the uncertainty around Rashee Rice and the amount of pressure being put on a rookie wide receiver and Hollywood Brown to be big-time stars, that we might have another somewhat ground and pound type Chiefs team that maybe they're not as fun to watch in primetime, but certainly you can't complain about the Chiefs being in primetime. They're the back-to-back champs.
No, but that's not one of my top 50 concerns about the upcoming season is the Chiefs being unwatchable. I know what you're saying, but I think they have a better wideout core already without, even if you miss Rice for a big chunk of the season, potentially wise than they did last year. And my issue is more with Tony Romo and Mahomes, and this is taking some of those Mahomes moments and big matchups away from Tony Romo and giving them to Chris Collinsworth. So you're right. There's more to consider there.
Yeah, that Saturday thing is weird. It was a little twist because now I'm looking at it, and we'll get to the Wednesday Christmas games, but they put the Ravens and the Chiefs both on that Saturday game, 2 big-time games. The other game is Steelers-Ravens, and that one's on Fox. And so that's just a little new wrinkle. They're trying to take out college football. I mean, they're coming for everyone, putting big-time games on those days, and then putting the big-time quarterbacks, making them go from Saturday to Wednesday, on a Christmas Wednesday.
When does it end? When do the slaughters cease?
There's no such thing as enough. Enough does not exist.
All right, let's take a break, and we'll take a look at that Thursday Night Football schedule. Yeah, right. Welcome back. In case you're just joining us, would be weird, but maybe you wanted to jump ahead of the ads and then you went too far and you were like, I'll just start here. I'm sure that happens sometimes. People have a lot of podcasts
30
they
minutes.
check
How
out.
bad are they at pressing the 30-second forward
You
button.
know, it was a decision they made, and you know, they didn't lose sleep about it. They're not going to lose sleep about it. Anyway, we are going through the NFL schedule release that went down on May 15th. That is today's taping. And, you know, I was just thinking, we were throwing up these graphics. You could watch this on YouTube. Check out the program on YouTube if you want to get another viewpoint into how this show looks and operates. And throw up Thursday Night Football right now, ETP, because I see that it's an issue because it's covering up Gregg right now. And is there a way to let's play with our headshots? Is there a way to get take it down a second?
It's
right.
obscuring Gregg. That doesn't seem fair.
All right. Try a different grouping of the images for video. Okay, now throw it up.
That's good. I like that.
Oh, yeah, this works.
I like that.
This works.
What? This is ridiculous. Then I'm blocked, and that works for you?
But it's cleaner, and it's actually even tighter on Dan and I.
It looks good. It looks good.
Nice. Yeah.
Eric said he was going to fix it. I don't see how this is how I would label it. I mean, I can understand for some of the listeners or the viewers, but I'm completely off the screen now. So nice work.
This is actually kind of amazing. Just hearing Marc's disembodied voice behind a Broncos versus
like
Saints
slowly
graphic.
getting more angry. Like the
Do
building,
I need to discuss Thursday Night Football still, or
you know, it'd be good if we could do in post production the literal steam starting to come out from on the sides of the schedule for Thursday Night Football.
So predictable.
All right. No, you could go back to the original one because Mark's gonna get mad. So all right. Let's go through Thursday night because Thursday night is, again, it used to be the redheaded stepchild of the primetime slate, but then the NFL Network sold, or NFL Media sold, or NFL sold it to Prime, and now Prime says, no, you got to give us some good games. So we've gotten better games as a result. So what we found in a lot of ways here is that the Sunday product, ironically, which is, you know, what it's all about, because of the business side of the NFL, so many games now have to be farmed out to these primetime slots, Mark, that Sunday doesn't always have the best games anymore, and usually doesn't, except when you take out Sunday Night Football. But the plus side is these island games have gotten a lot better over the years. Thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I still think that 4 p.m. slot, whether it's Fox or CBS, will continue to have major bangers because they're paying a ton of money for that. But you're right. Like, the best games on paper, when we're looking at it now, each one of these primetime venues are solidified. There isn't like one that's just sort of floating stinkers out there like TNF used to be. Because I see on this one, we can get into it, but on this slate for TNF this year, they are leaning hard into divisional rivalries, and they got a lot of good divisional games, especially late in the year.
You know, I agree with everything you're saying, Dan, but this is the spot where you sneak in a couple teams. So we get the Patriots get one primetime game. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. You know, they get the international game, but they have one primetime game. You do it early before their record maybe is too bad. It's Drake May. And isn't it funny? Now the Jets are the big team lifting up the Patriots for their only primetime game. And then you kind of see in here, it's like the Bucks didn't get a lot of primetime love, even though they've won their division 3 straight times. Let's sneak them in here. It's like the Broncos and Saints don't get a lot of love now. Let's do the Sean Payton revenge game. And I don't know if it's revenge, but Sean Payton comes to New Orleans, and so that's like a fun game. So some teams still, this is like where they slide.
Yeah, absolutely. It's still of the island slots. Thursday's still going to be the landing spot in that sense. But I mean, I've been with the company for the entire run of Thursday Night Football, and it used to feel like the Jaguars and Titans played every week. And if it wasn't actually the Jaguars and Titans, it was those type of matchups almost every Thursday. And now we got bangers. So let's go through it week 2, because obviously week 1 is the kickoff game, and that goes to NBC. You have Bills Dolphins, and then you have a rivalry game, Pats Jets, with, you know, new quarterbacks in the mix. Cowboys Giants, Bucks Falcons. So Mark, you're dead on. These are big time division rivals. Niners Seahawks. Now we have an inter conference. Broncos Saints week 7, Vikings Rams week 8, Texans Jets. Woo, big showdown week 9. Week 10 Bengals Ravens. Week 11 Commanders Eagles. Week 12, Marquee Steelers, Brownies. Week 14, so I think we got Thanksgiving there. Week 13, Week 14, Packers, Lions. Week 15, Rams, Niners. Week 16, Browns are back against the Bengals, another big primetime game. And then Week 17, two teams that are hoping to be in the postseason race, Seahawks and Bears.
Like that week, take out Week 11, Commanders, Eagles. I mean, we don't know where we're going to be at with the Commanders, but 10, 12, 14, 15, 16, those are megaton matchups between playoff teams. Like that's unusual for TNF from 6 years ago, to your point.
Yeah, Packers, Lions, and Rams, Niners, 14 and 15 back-to-back. The Bengals, Ravens. This does seem like they're doing everything they can to keep Al as invested as possible in this last year, potentially, on his contract.
So the Panthers are the only one.
Yeah.
That feels a little personal.
It should have been like two teams. Then you're not alone, you know?
Oh, yeah, but me though, Greggy. Like if it's two teams, then you can say, well, there's a reason and there's only so much space. But when it's just the one team,
I'm just saying tough. The Cardinals had only ESPN Plus. The Jags get the international games, but they only have one sort of secondary Monday Night Football. Actually, no, they have a couple. My bad. No, you're right. It's not great. But they were
you
truly
could follow
abysmal
some breadcrumbs
team.
there, I feel like.
They were truly an abysmal team.
Yeah. All right. Let's check. We have a ton of listeners overseas. So why don't we check out the international game schedule? As you know, and that the Zuzzer is giving away two of his own tickets, the Jets Vikings, October 6th at the Hot Toddy. Check out social on NFL UK and the Irish NFL side of things, and of course my own handles where you can, all you got to do, by the way, on that post is comment and tag a buddy. Ooh. And you could get those tickets.
I'm gonna do that. There's nothing. I watched the video. Nothing in the video says that Mark and I are
No, literally in the video it says, you must be a resident of the United Kingdom or Ireland. So we are not eligible, but we can hopefully, if we're at that game, we can meet those fans. That would be
I like
nice
where Greg's head is at, though. I mean, I would have gone there too if there were no stipulations.
I like us being involved in like a quiz show level scandal over this. That feels like a nice way. Like of all the ways that we could exit the company, that feels like the best version of our ouster. Hot take: God Save the Queen, better song than God Save the King. The lyrics just hit harder. I thought lyrically it was a better song.
She had a great run. Yeah.
Let's check out the schedule. I mean, King Charles. They just had his portrait. Do you see that? He looks like Vigo from Ghostbusters 2. Like, what are we doing?
They made him look
like he's in Hades.
He looked relatively youthful and hotter than I believe he is today by my personal take, but he looked a little more fiery and youthful. But
well, the reason he looks more fiery is because you could see it as what it would feel like to be in hell. I mean, that's all. It's quite red. That's all. All right, let's see the schedule. Nice King talk in a big spot. A little King breakdown. International schedule: São Paulo, Brazil, Friday night, week 1. You know what? I've come around on this. I came around on this pretty quickly. I bet this is going to be an awesome vibe, great energy, and a great game. Jordan Love coming off his breakout 2023 season against the Eagles, who obviously are the off-season champions, as they always are, but they have some doubters to prove wrong now as the new season kicks off and they get a fresh start in Brazil. And then we get 3 games in London. I mentioned that the Jets Vikings, October 6th at the Hot Toddy. You have Jaguars doing the back-to-back as they are wont to do. Jaguars against Bears. So you're getting Caleb Williams. Hopefully the Bears are the real deal, and they're a good team or an entertaining team by the middle of October. And the Jaguars bounce back after a rough ending to their previous season. And then the next week, you get the Pats, who, it's interesting, Greggy, the Pats, people might not know this. People in the United Kingdom do, but and surrounding territories. That the Patriots, because of their winning ways, were the most popular team in that region when we first made our trips to London about 5 years ago. I wonder what kind of hold they have now that they've had some down years post Tom Brady. It's just interesting, but they are there obviously for a reason. They want to keep a foothold in the market. They get the Jaguars. That game's at Wembley Stadium. So let's talk about the London games.
I think they have a huge foothold just based on social today, because I saw the announcements for these games, and every other reply just about were Patriots fans being like, finally.
Makes sense.
Yeah,
makes
like we're
sense.
so excited because they actually haven't played in the UK. They were in Germany last year, but they haven't played in the UK, I believe, in a decade. So it's been a while. So these are popular teams. Bears are a very popular team in the UK. That's a fun matchup. I like it. We got to get to the hot toddy. I guess we're going to see your team, you know, if we were picking one. I don't know if we're going to any of these, but I feel like if we were going to one, we're probably aiming for that Jets game.
They do get Aaron Rodgers. You get, in theory, J.J. McCarthy. That's another rookie. And I think
Or
they're
Sam
trying
Darnold.
to...
It could
Or
be
Sam Darnold.
Aaron
Could be Darnold.
Rodgers versus Sam Darnold at the hot toddy. Pinch me. I've woken up and gone to heaven.
I think they're trying to squeeze at least one win here for the Jaguars based on the opponent. And because they only have 7 games in Jacksonville, so
Well, I feel like
one
they
of
always
these
play
needs to
well.
feel like a home game.
Am I crazy? I feel like they play well over there. I don't know
Yeah,
what
no,
their
they've been
all-time record
good
is.
overall.
They swept
year,
last year.
Yeah, last year it turned their season around really, at least for a while until it didn't. They reached the new stadium deal, which I was wondering how that would affect London, but as stipulated, and it's not completely agreed to. There's a lot of stuff going on, but they still will be coming to London 1 game a year. I don't think they'll be coming 2 anymore, or at least according to that deal, that they'll be still planning to do the 1 game in London, even when that starts, which won't be for another 5 years.
You know, it'd be kind of a awesome move if Shad Khan's son still had the neck brace in October.
You got to lean into it. I think that'd be incredible.
Or maybe even maybe he's more injured. Maybe he's in the, the old, what's funnier or more pathetic than the neck brace? Whenever someone's in the full body cast, when you have it on the arms and the legs and you're in the wheelchair, you're just a human disaster.
Good stuff.
Ramp it up. And finally, the international game in Germany this year in Munich is the GN against the Panthers. So
they get a standalone game.
They do
They
get.
do
I guess they give them that. Yep.
Keep pounding.
They bury the Panthers somewhere in Eastern Europe, and they do get a 9:30 a.m. Eastern Germany game. So okay, I didn't know that. I didn't realize that. So they can. So let me just walk back what I said a little bit earlier. Like they didn't get nothing. You know what I mean? They got, we're sending you. We are, and imagine the phone calls. Like no, you can't be upset. We are sending you to Germany. That's an incredibly important and ferociously growing territory for us. And we've chosen you, Mr. Tepper, to represent us there. So they're covered a little bit there. That gives them a little bit of back-end coverage from this perspective.
Also, I mean, that's how you grow a German fan base. There could be a bunch of 7 to 9-year-old first-time football observers, and they fall in love with the Panthers, unknowing of what state they sit in the NFC South at the moment.
Maybe they'll be much better. It does make me think about the Germany game last year, though. I know there was 2. One of them was Colts, Pats. But I saw the graphic for this one, Giants, and I'm excited. Those 3 London games and the Germany game, they're all our NFL Network games. That's our time to shine. But I remember the graphic for last year's game in Germany, and it was Tyreek Hill and Patrick Mahomes, and then this time it was Bryce Young and Dexter Lawrence. And I actually had to Google because I'm like, that's probably Dexter Lawrence, but I'm not really sure what his face looks like. He is the best player on the Giants, and it was kind of a beefy face, but I had to make sure it was Dexter Lawrence. It was Dexter Lawrence.
Nice. Well done. By the way, yes, good point, Mark, because these European football fans, they have long memories. I mean, the fact that the Bears are a popular team,
Yeah.
Bears have done like nothing in 40 years, but a certain age of a football fan, that came up in the mid 80s when the NFL first started trickling through and getting across the sea. That's why there's a lot of Merino and Dolphin fans like Handsome Hank. And then there's just a lot of people are like, my favorite player is Refrigerator Perry. What a specimen.
Perry was over there, so that makes a lot of sense.
Oh my God, from 1 yard out. Why didn't Walter Payton get the ball? All right, let's check out the holiday games back here in the States. Thanksgiving 2024. Can't wait. Maybe my favorite holiday outside of Christmas. Love Thanksgiving. November 28th. We got Bears Lions in the early game. And again, there's, Marky, there's a lot of pressure on the Bears not to suck as we go through these island games here on scheduled release day, because if the Bears are fun and Williams is ahead of pace, and I did see we had our first trope alert around a rookie quarterback that popped up on social media earlier today, some type of beat report. I don't think it was a beat report. It might have been a TV reporter. I actually don't know who it was.
I think it was like a fan, more or less a fan account.
Was it? I said, I know I shouldn't say this, but Caleb Williams, as he's just throwing warm-up tosses on, slants, is like, he looks so comfortable. He's ready for this. It's like, trope alert. Holy God, can we just let the guys get a little more deep into the summer, at least, before we start with that business. Anyway, Bears Lions on CBS, and then you have Giants Cowboys, and I'll be fair here. I try to be positive about the G-men, but we need the Giants not to be one of the worst teams in the league, which they could be. That game, of course, is always going to be in Dallas, so that game could be a dog potentially. And then the Thursday Thanksgiving night game, Dolphins versus Packers. We're outside of the Super Bowl September Dolphins at this stage. So the idea is this game in Green Bay.
Yes.
I'm a little nervous about the Miami Dolphins in late November giving us a show, but maybe this year is different.
Or it's a way to show us that, like, in the frigid temperatures of Green Bay, they can survive. But this slate throws me just a little bit, because I feel like this always seemed like a place for like Ravens Steelers or something that just like absolutely had like conference title game implications. I just don't see that with this slate, but I kind of love the idea that we could get a really spicy Bears team here. Giants TBD, and Dolphins Packers is that's intriguing, and it's just a little atypical for Thanksgiving to me.
Maybe asking the Giants and the Bears both to be good might be a lot, but if one of those teams is feisty, then I could live with it.
I love Dolphins Packers. You're right though. I saw that and I was like, oh, it doesn't feel like a Thursday night game, but it does, or a Thanksgiving night game. But Green Bay, like Lambeau on Thanksgiving night, there is something spicy about that. And I was thinking about the Giants Cowboys because they had this game just 2 years ago. The Giants were pretty good 2 years ago, but this is usually the most watched game of the year. Is that game? Or it's the Lions. The two most watched games of the year are Lions early, Thanksgiving, and then the next Cowboys one. And it's like maybe they just feel like it's team proof. You can throw anyone in there. You throw in a big market or whatever, but it's like people are watching that no matter what. I'm not turning it off if it's a blowout.
Maybe they should actually, because at this point they're like, we dominate the ratings no matter what. Let's put Panthers Jags in there and see what happens. What kind of number we do.
See, maybe that's a bridge.
Good concept, Dan. I'd take that to the top of the network. I'm sure they'd. I'm
going to say it is my favorite, and that is the best holiday. It's past Christmas for me. Now, is that because my family leaves me like 3 nights before Christmas, and we have to pretend it's Christmas the week before?
Well, your name is also Greg Rosenthal, so
whatever.
Christmas
we
is
celebrate
not like high up.
Christmas.
I feel like for you in general.
No, it always was as a kid. We always celebrated the 25th. It was President's Day, but yes, Thanksgiving wins.
Then you said President's Day. I was like, oh, you celebrate the U.S. presidents on December 25th? President's Day. All right, let's check out Christmas without further ado. Somehow we made it happen because the NFL defeated days now. Christmas falls on a Tuesday, I think. Tuesday or Wednesday?
It's a Wednesday. And in fact, to your point, like the one little nugget about the team that we want, like the Chiefs, they play on every day of the week this season except for Tuesday. Every day of the week except for Tuesday, I read. I mean, if you go look at it, because this game seals it, but
Well, they don't play on Friday though, but yeah, but close.
I don't know.
Because there's that
I
one
gotta check it
Friday
out.
game.
Does anybody else think it's funny? Like when we were kids, like every game was on Sunday and maybe one Monday night game, and now you have the defending champion playing 6 days a week.
Greg, they play on Black Friday.
Oh my God, they do. I'm so sorry.
They play on
I'm an
every
idiot.
day of the week except
I'm
for
an idiot.
Tuesday. Like that's never happened to an NFL team in the history of the earth.
Never question.
You just laid out
Mark's
another
research.
challenge for Mike North in Park Avenue. Like how can we get all 7? They'll do it. They'll
Well,
figure
they
it
got-
out.
They got the Black Friday game. They really, it's not quite to the level of NBA where like the players, like if LeBron or Curry's on, it's just like that's why they talk about him so much. Their games just like do double other games. But Mahomes and the Chiefs are kind of like that now, that they're just like anytime we need a big spot, like Amazon, tell us the one thing you want the most this year. We want Patrick Mahomes on that Black Friday game. I swear, I bet that was it. And it's like, okay, we can make that happen.
And by the way, I hope you, the listener, have the financial wherewithal to have multiple streaming options, because it continues to build up what you need to watch all these key games, because the Christmas games this year are on Netflix. That's a new one.
And the next 2 years also, they got a
great.
3-year deal for that.
They're great.
So the Christmas Day games, which again is a Wednesday, but now football's played on Wednesdays. Chiefs versus Steelers, 1 p.m. Eastern. And then you have Ravens versus Texans. Gorgeous. 4:30 p.m. Eastern. A little bit surprised that they don't have a Christmas night game. Wonder why.
I mean, it's Wednesday. I think that's why. Even 2. When I saw that there was 2, I felt like that's a stretch just because.
I think it's because
it's
you had
Wednesday.
these teams mishmash and play each other the Saturday before, so you'd have to get another 2 teams.
Oh,
in there
you're
to
right.
do that.
Because the turnaround is so brutal, you have to at least do an earlier game to do a primetime game, because you can't give all these. I guess you could figure out a way. I'm curious what the Ravens and Texans have the week after Christmas.
Right, because these.
But it's after buys, so they're both playing. So
Right.
that is tough. So, Jesus, I mean
That's tough.
Listen.
So we had Puka Nacua on NFL Network. I'm using the NFL Network and he said they asked him what he thought about the schedule, and he said all I look for is the Thursday night games, because it's like that's the weeks you have to sort of almost plan ahead to prepare my body, and that's just going to be a totally crazy different week than any other week. That's on the players' minds
How the
first and
hell?
foremost.
Think about that. Think about by the end of the regular season, the physical toll of these games, and these 2 teams. I mean, 4 teams playing on Wednesday. That they then have to turn around, and I'd have to go before I kind of.
Well, they go Saturday. They go Saturday to Wednesday. So those 4 teams, as Mark pointed out, that weird Saturday I was talking about before, that's now going to be on major networks. Those 4 teams will then flip and also play on Wednesday.
Think about this though, because I mean, this isn't huge to us, but even from like a fantasy angle, if the game is on Wednesday versus even Thursday or the next Sunday, there's a handful of players that might be like, well, I could have played on Sunday, but I can't get out there on Wednesday. And there's teams that don't even really add a lot of like schematical intricacies for Thursday night games, or don't even practice. They just do a walkthrough. So it kind of truncates everything in a way that we haven't really seen outside of that Ravens-Steelers Wednesday game during Corona, when half the rosters were out with Corona.
Now, the flip side is that's like fantasy playoffs, and you got people who like their DFS and they like watching the games for gambling reasons or whatever. And that's kind of fun to add an extra day of that, to add the Saturday and add the Wednesday of that.
I'm glad we're talking about this though, because if you really want to dig in and like what does matter in the middle of May, when you look at these schedules, the turnarounds and which teams have these brutal turnarounds does matter. So, and I'm citing because Florio. I mean, this guy. He's written probably 55 articles today about the schedule. He has one here. He mentions that there was a rule for many years that the NFL required teams to play only once per year with a 4-day turnaround. They got rid of that before last season, and now multiple teams play multiple games with only 3 days off between games. This year, 13 teams do it twice. So the Jets, that is a flip side of having all that the spotlight on you is that you have a lot of short weeks. The Jets, the Niners, the Seahawks, Rams, Bengals, Browns, Dolphins, Cowboys, Giants, Bears, Steelers, the Ravens, and the Texans all have multiple games with only 3 days off.
Basically, last year's playoff teams plus the Giants.
And the Jets.
Those are all good teams.
So the 2 New York teams and then playoff teams. So you could kind of figure that out. For Pittsburgh, Baltimore, and Houston, 1 short week happens between Sunday and Thursday, and the other lands on a Saturday to Wednesday for Christmas. The Chiefs also have a 5-day turnaround to Black Friday and a 4-day turnaround between Saturday, December 21st, and Wednesday, December 25th. There are studies that the league has done that short week football injury rate is not higher, but you also listen to the players, and as you just said, they have to wrap their head around it and plan and be prepared mentally as well as physically because it's very challenging. All right. Anything else, guys, before we do a little news and say goodbye? Anything about the schedule that jumps out to you?
We get Russell Wilson returning to Denver. That's kind of week 2 if he has a job. I did think like the teams that, and this is more of a schedule thing. If you were ever going to try to get into the schedule of like what's helpful, I feel like the divisions that play the NFC South, that's helpful. So the NFC East plays the NFC South, or vice versa. That's helpful. The AFC West, the Chiefs to me have one of the, even though they have the quick turnaround and they have the first place schedule, they actually have one of the easiest schedules because I think that division's pretty lame, and they play the NFC South out of division. So, to the victor go the spoils, I guess. For the Chiefs.
We also get Chiefs Niners week 7 in that 4:25 slot. So not everything's on prime time. I can't wait to see that one.
That's good. That's fun.
Let's see the NFL research department, who I am, as you boys are, quite fond of. They have some great tidbits in their schedule release research packet. Let me take a look at. They have a whole section here on revenge. We'll throw some revenge games at you. You'll love revenge, right? This is where Chris's eyes would especially glaze over. Let me see. Let me see if I can find this. Let's take a break real quick, and then I'll find this, and then we'll hit a little bit of news and say goodbye. Be right back. All right, we are back as promised, and I know people were just, they couldn't, I mean, they wanted to respect the sponsors, so they didn't fast forward through the commercials, but it must have felt like an endless wait to get to the top 10 revenge games of 2024.
I want to hear them.
You guys ready?
The Russ one I mentioned has to be on there. I spoiled one of them, I'm sure.
ETP, give me some like revenge background music, okay? All right. Saquon Barkley versus the Giants. Saquon, and you know what? I'm sick of like being critical of the Eagles. I'm taking a little break from that. But also Saquon did not cover himself in glory. He was sitting courtside at Sixers games during that Sixers-Knicks series. It's like he was like trying to taunt Giants fans because some Giants fans were mean to him on Twitter. Buddy, just, you know what? Live long and prosper, my friend. Star Wars reference. Just, have fun, enjoy yourself. You don't need to tweak Giants fans. They didn't want you to leave. That was management that decided to sign Daniel Jones. Bizarre. Anyway, Saquon Giants, week 7 and 18. We mentioned Russell Wilson at the Broncos, week 2. Imagine he turns into 2014 Russell Wilson and lights up Sean Payton for 470 and 4 touchdowns.
That's like legit revenge. That's a real revenge game. If he's the starter.
But Russell Wilson was like you have to come from the angle that Russell Wilson was done really wrong by the Broncos. He didn't come in there and shine and then was ingloriously cut. It was like a disaster that they had to decide to walk away from.
No, but
so
his coach,
I don't not buying
him and
that
his coach didn't get along. His coach showed him up a little bit.
The late season benching, which was financially justifiable, but was also, for a guy of Wilson's stature in the league, was a tough one to swallow. He was released. I'm just looking at this written down. It's still crazy when you look at it. Wilson was released after 2 seasons of into a 5-year, $245 million contract he signed in 2022. Stephon Diggs versus the Bills in Week 5. I'm sure he's
Ooh.
going to want to have many catches in that
That's good.
game. Let's see if he can get open still. Kirk Cousins at Vikings in Week 14. Aaron Jones versus Packers, Week 4 and 17. Derek Carr versus the Raiders.
Ooh, I kind of like that.
That's kind of fun.
So that's in week 17. Let's see where
Week
Derek Carr
17.
exists in our life at that point.
That's
Ooh.
fair. That's fair.
It could be Spencer Rattler versus the Raiders. Watch out.
All right, this one I'm gonna swing by the research department to say we need to remove this one. Calvin Ridley versus the Jaguars. I can't go there. I don't know.
Stretch.
I don't know if that's a revenge.
They just needed a round 10 number. Let's get Jacoby Brissett versus Washington or something.
Montez Sweat at the
Come on.
I mean, they needed 10. Fine.
Sweat at Commanders. Brian Burns at Panthers. Ooh la la from Germany. From Germany.
That's right.
We will have our
put,
revenge.
I love Dexter Lawrence, but yeah, give the Burns. Put Burns in
We
that
will
picture.
have revenge on Brian Burns. Achtung, baby. 49ers versus Chiefs. Because of the Super Bowl.
Wait,
All
what
right,
order
week
is this
7.
list in? That's
I
not
don't-
buried below Derek Carr versus the Raiders.
Oh my God. I love our research department. They have honorable mention. Let's
Okay.
keep going. Bills at Rams. Tre'Davious White versus the Bills. Hell yeah.
Okay. Von Miller
Eagles at
versus
Bucks.
the Rams too. You know.
Devin White versus the Bucks. Ravens
Todd
versus
Bowles
Bengals.
talked some ish on Devin White back in the day, so that's real revenge.
Ravens versus Bengals. Geno Stone versus the Ravens. Chiefs at Bills. 2022 AFC Divisional Round rematch. We're losing momentum. Ravens versus Steelers. Patrick Queen. versus the
Patrick Queen
Ravens.
goes and makes a ton of money, and it's his revenge game.
Ew.
And finally, Marky Miark. Jerry Judy versus the Broncos. Miark.
Jerry Judy to me is like, if like the Broncos won that one.
See, they clearly are focused on players that changed teams this last year.
Yeah.
But I'll circle another one for you. Week 13, Danny boy,
Yeah.
Geno Smith at the New York Jets. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's go.
That I buy.
That feels like the water is way under the bridge at this point, but
Sort of, but it's fun.
it could
It's
probably
fun.
replace Geno Stone versus the Ravens. I think it could probably edge out.
In MetLife, Geno shows, you proud of me now, Dad?
I could promise. I know this sounds crazy, Greg, but I could promise not one Jets fan has ever thought to themselves, "If only we had Geno Smith this whole time." All right, news. Jared Goff. Yes, the Lions have 6 primetime games. How about that? And Jared Goff will be the quarterback if the fates allow, and he's going to be the quarterback there for multiple years to come. Because right after we finished recording, and I thought we declared vengeance, by the way, on the whole industry to do this, but not an hour after we left the studio on Monday, Goff and the Lions' 4-year, $212 million contract extension got out there. He was heading into the final year of a 4-year extension. He originally signed with the Rams back in 2019, traded, of course, to the Lions in 2021. Listen to this show at that time. Listen to anything at the time. It was widely assumed that Goff was a bridge to whatever came next, the quarterback for the Lions, and nothing more than that. But instead, Goff returned to playing at a high level, like the early days with the Rams, and became a beloved figure in Detroit, almost the rare Greggy underdog figure for a guy that was a number 1 overall pick who had been to a Super Bowl before he got to Detroit. So now he is amongst the highest paid players in football. He will receive $170 million in guaranteed money on this new deal. Contract runs through 27 with an option to remain with the team through 28. It's a remarkable comeback story in a lot of ways, and a unique one because the circumstances are so different than a typical comeback story. But it is a comeback story. Don't get it twisted.
You're absolutely right. There isn't quite a perfect comp to anything like this happening in NFL history, partly because we've never had these sort of contracts, but a player that was traded as a distressed asset where Goff last contract, which was very similar. I actually believe, depends on how you slice it up. I think the numbers are a little fluffed up, but there's one way to look at it with the new money that he's like the second highest paid quarterback in new money per year average. And that was what he was when he signed the huge deal with the Rams, that he was the second highest paid quarterback. And that contract proved to be so bad that they had to trade him essentially as with negative value. And yet here he is just a few years later signing the equivalent to that contract. Again, it's remarkable. Basically, the first 3 years of this are more or less guaranteed. So he is locked in at least through 2026, which and for huge money.
Yeah, because I think like you always wait a couple days to find out like if there's fugazi elements to some of these deals. Like it's a lot of real money that he is getting. And I mean, it is interesting to see what happens with him, the player, but in 2026, he has like a nearly $70 million cap hit. So, I mean, it's just like, I think, but in general with the cap, like these deals don't concern you the way that they would have in the past. There's just a way to get through these. But this is like not, this is full belief in a player that the general manager knew going in and like took a chance on. And even at the draft, it's like the roster loves him, the town loves him, he's getting paid, and it's one of the better stories because you're right, Dan. Like I used to just use words to describe Jared Goff as one of the most dull to the eyes quarterbacks around, and he's completely transformed the way that we look at him over the past 2 seasons.
I have a medium hot take on this. Like this contract might not be great. Like even in a best case scenario, we are in this weird spot where like the top 13 or 14 quarterbacks all get to be about the highest paid quarterback in the league for a little while, but they're not even. Like the fact that Jared Goff essentially is getting the same contracts as Joe Burrow and Josh Allen and stuff, and like he's nowhere near as good a player. Like that's not that helpful to the Lions. I don't think you maybe just don't have a choice, but like he's significant. Like his numbers are very poor against pressure. They always have been. He needs things to be right. He's somewhere in like the 8 to 12 range, and that's great. He stabilized them. He's perfect for them. But like just as a pure like analytical numbers thing, like it's not great for them that they basically have to give him Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow's contract when he's nowhere near as good as those players. I mean, it's worth noting, right?
I mean, who's the biggest winner? Are all these quarterbacks that are better than him? Like
right.
Like it just raised the floor. So if you're now 8 even feels strong. I like Goff a lot, but I feel like, and we'd have to do, and we'll do this exercise. We'll do a little Dalton scale at some point this offseason, but I would say he's in that 10 to 12 range maybe, and if he's getting paid this outrageous sum, that just lifts it up for everybody else. I feel like ultimately though, in a lot of ways, like the Lions were in a tough spot because what are you going to do? Are you going to play hardball with Goff? You move on from Goff? Like or are you going to try to keep the ship, which is running on very the fuel is like high octane good vibes in Detroit, and a lot of feeling about this could be the year. Pay the quarterback. You heard it. You heard those fans, hundreds of thousands of Detroiters chanting his name. They overpaid him, sure, but if you're a quarterback that could play at a high level in that offense, there are worse ways to spend your money. I
also like the Lions are, and not in an annoying way that I think like the Eagles get on your radar, Dan, obviously, but like they just kind of, Brad Holmes and the whole front office, they do things their own way, and they believe what they believe, and they've been proven correct building this team. And it's like they got this done before like Dak Prescott gets paid or Tua. I mean, there's other quarterbacks sitting out there. There's a Trevor Lawrence sitting out there and other dudes, Jordan Love, where it's like these contracts should have happened in some cases. I think Tua's is a mysterious one, how to handle that. But like now it adds like a little heat to all of those deals as well.
By the way, it's the coverage of the Philadelphia Eagles that I have a problem with, not the Eagles themselves.
Well, but I mean, when like the Eagles think differently, it's like I think the Lions think differently, but it's not on everyone's radar because they're probably closer to being America's team than the Cowboys for many.
And one other transaction, Marquez Valdez-Scantling formerly of the Chiefs, who won a Super Bowl, made a few plays there on the way to the Lombardi, has signed with the Bills. And, we did that exercise a couple of maybe last week, looking at some position groups, and I pulled the Bills depth chart and trying to make sense of it in a post-Diggs world. And yeah, MVS is just like yet another guy in that room. You take a look at this Bills depth chart now. Listen, we're putting a lot of faith in Josh Allen. The offensive line is good, and the running back broke out last year, James Cook. So we're not going to say the Bills are going to have struggle scoring points, but
he's probably their wide receiver 4, although I think he actually adds some value just because they didn't really have like an outside burner.
Man, he keeps on signing with the right quarterbacks. I have to give MVS that.
He's usually good for like 400 yards in the regular season, but then suddenly it's the AFC Championship game and he's like 2 for 75 with a game-winning play, and so maybe he'll keep that going. But yeah, your depth chart would be what? There's no one.
This is awesome. They are the Just a Guy All-Stars. Here we go. Curtis Samuel, I know we like him. We got the rookie second-round pick, Keon Coleman. Who knows what he's going to give you in year one. You got Khalil Shakir. You have Chase Claypool's in the building. You have KJ Hamler in the building. You have Andy Isabella in the building. You now have Marquez Valdez-Scantling in the building. Mac Hollins is in the building. Quintez Cephas is in the building. What a motley crew. They just need a couple of those guys to pop.
It just reminds me of like the last team MVS was on. A bunch of guys in the wide receiver room.
Yeah.
Little better. Shakir's a nice player. Samuel's a nice player. They're a little similar, though.
But they're leaning on a rookie to do a lot quickly, too.
You're going to lean on Dalton Kincaid. I think they're hoping, at least.
Yeah. Finally, in the news, I don't know if you saw this, but Tom Brady has come out and said he regrets the Netflix roast, Mark, that you attended last weekend. He said that he, on some level, misread it, and he didn't realize the effect. Let's see. He was on the Pivot podcast, and he was upset about how it impacted his children, the people he cares about most in the world. So he has regrets. And I should throw out there that I was texting with a friend of the podcast, Nikki Glazer, who was the breakout star of the roast, and we were just commiserating about this. Nikki, who was on the show Super Bowl week, had no connection to the sporting world, and then shows up at this roast, and her career goes through the stratosphere and becomes linked to Tom Brady kind of forever as a result. Can someone say sneaky backdoor Flashpoint Focus? Nikki Glazer?
Yes, I think so. She noted to us at the Super Bowl, and she said this since when people asked about, why she did the roast, but that she had no connection to football at all. It was Taylor Swift that got her involved, and she wrote a lot of her own stuff. She went through a lot of her material on Stern that she didn't use. Got a little bit of help too, but like I think I texted you guys during the show. This was the runaway hit from the night. There was a lot of good stuff, but she was the runaway hit. But as for Tom Brady, you see the reaction and you don't want to do it, but you knew what was going to come up, I would imagine, topically during that. During a roast.
I listened to it, and I don't think he totally had wrapped his head around it for whatever reason. Just that he said it affected his kids, and he just for some reason didn't connect the dots of oh yeah, they're gonna bury me related to my divorce, and that's gonna hurt my kids. He said the rest of it was fine. Everything was about me was fine. It was a fun night. I love comedy, all this stuff. I don't think he even fully said that I regret doing it, but he does regret that part of it.
Oh, I think he regrets doing it, Greggy.
Yeah, I guess you're right. I wouldn't. He said, "Yeah, I wouldn't do that again because of the kids." And shout out, Nikki. She, the AFC couldn't stop Tom Brady, but Nikki Glazer did.
And like Nikki and I go way back, and we would joke about how like I was like a sports guy and she didn't know anything about sports and didn't care about sports. And then I said, isn't it ironic that like being involved with this sports event like changed your career forever and sent you into the stratosphere? She kind of had a monoculture moment out of it, which is just so crazy. But you know, Tom, I don't know. Listen, Tom lost 30 million on crypto. Tom has made some strange decisions in his life, and this was another one. He's got a fascinating guy to track. Now he's going to go into the Fox booth. Is that going to be a similarly disastrous decision? We shall see.
A little bit of a wandering soul.
I think so. I think there's something going on there.
But I do want to say, as much as I love everything I've worked on when it comes to the Flashpoint Focus, I do want to say, like, as executive producers, I would have thought if that was a Flashpoint Focus moment, we probably should have.
Chuck.
We should have probably mentioned.
You're talking about Mark and I?
Yeah, I'm talking about you guys.
Oh, okay.
What would you have done differently, Greg? You tell us.
I mean, usually it's not the gaffer's role to be sharing this, but go ahead.
I would have maybe mentioned or said the word Flashpoint Focus at some point in the Nikki Glazer conversation.
No, I think, Mark, I called it a sneaky backdoor Flashpoint Focus.
Which I think it was.
And they have, industry-wise, they have backdoor pilots, things like that, where it doesn't seem like it in the moment, but you look back and you're like, oh, okay, and I see they had something cooking the whole time.
I knew what you were saying.
Next
I
show,
think
let's
Greg
work
now
up
knows.
a sneaky backdoor Flashpoint Focus song with Lusted.
All right.
Good show.
Good app. We'll be back on Monday. Oh, before we say goodbye, Mark, do you want to share with the audience why you weren't here on Monday's episode?
I want to compliment some of our listeners because someone sent me a link to. There goes the flute. People were like, "Oh, what's the flute about?" Because we had talked about flautists and flutes during the, Big Funk song. But someone connected the dots that I went to a Los Angeles Renaissance fair.
Wait, how did who is someone?
I don't know. Because I think these are like it was a thread of people trying to guess, and I was like stunned that someone pieced it together that in the LA region that this
Based
occurred.
on what? Like, what were the?
I don't know. It wasn't
Are they
like
geo-tracking you? Where was this? This was on the Reddit board.
Yeah, like it was not. It was just someone pieced together, and someone else like, wow, that's a really interesting like theory or something. I was like, how did they possibly know that? But I went with some friends. I had never been to one in my life. I had no idea what it would be like. It was about 96 degrees out with a burning sun. I just was happy to get out of there without a sunburn. But it was an experience, and I made sure that no photos leaked because I was given a slight costume / outfit to wear. It never arrived. It was sent to my building, but then was either stolen or the package was put somewhere incorrect. So I had to buy something else on Hollywood Boulevard on the fly, and it was an absurdist looking thing that I wore.
Oh, you have to share it with the audience.
I really don't even know if I have a photo because like I said, it was 98 degrees, and this was like a furry like tunic that was so hot that I was dying. So it wasn't on me for long. But I will if I can find a photo, I will, out of honor, I will provide.
Were you wearing? I like to picture furry tunic is probably what I would have guessed. A veil of flowers, and then like pantaloons, and then kind of like moccasins that like kind of curled up, almost like an elves.
No.
I imagine like the puffy pirate shirt from Seinfeld, that sort of thing.
It wasn't that furry, but like with a good attitude, I decided to not be like the only one not in our group dressed up. But there was a limit to it. That is for sure.
Mark,
I can't believe I'm telling you this. I could have said I could have hedged this story.
No, I like this is the new Mark.
You're on a journey, Mark.
And letting us in.
You're going through like new adventures, and as someone who is now married for a long time, I just celebrated my 12th anniversary. The idea of not having to do things I don't want to do is something that I really, one of the very best things about weddings. But you're not there right now with your life, so. But I'm hoping you made the most of an event that.
I would say this: it was definitely for adults. I would put it that way. It was not like there were some kids running around, but it was for adults in many ways, and I found that angle of it to be intriguing.
I also believe that Mark is a man who does what he wants, and that you might not want to be dressing up in a furry tunic, Dan. I know I'm not, but I think Mark probably enjoyed it. If he did it, he wanted to on some level.
I was like, I'm just gonna.
I applaud it.
Thank you. I was like, I'm gonna do it, and
You're so naive, Greg.
no, it was enjoyable. Had a good time.
Maybe the Renaissance Fair is something, because I could see Mark, Mark, free spirit, and he could
Right,
float
that's what I mean,
around.
that's what I'm
I
getting
could I could picture Mark. Oh yeah, I'll float around like the fairgrounds for a few hours, like on a Sunday. Some of these events, it's like, wow, Mark went to this. Mark went to the roast. Mark's going here. Mark's going there. It's like,
Well, the roast was connected to our career on some level, I think.
Roast was very normal. I'm not gonna. A lot of people were at the roast.
Oh, Greg. All right.
Hit the
Anything
music.
else? Anything else? No? All right. In that case, we'll be back on Monday. What we're going to talk about? What do we talk about after the schedule? I'm sure there's some OTAs and you never know. So make sure you check out the show. We'll certainly find something fun to chatter about with the league. Thank you for checking this show out. Until next time, beat the call.